Peruvians bump into each other. Camanchaca.
So it's that, and now Barry Norman tells us.
Camanchaca. The final C can be spelled... You can have a K instead of the final C.
Thank you.
It is a long name for a very short parasitic worm that lives in West African rivers and attacks passing bathers. And it gets into the veins and it crawls up the leg and lodges in the pelvic region and causes all kinds of irritations which I don't want to talk about. I don't even like to think about it. It's a nasty thing. It's a Camanchaca. It's a parasitic worm to be avoided at all costs.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed, I should think so. Now, Gemma Jones.
A Camanchaca is a Mexican fiesta, and it provides an opportunity for Mexican horsemen to show their prowess by doing things like galloping at great speed and plucking sticks from out of the ground, or riding blindfold or bareback through hoops, and it's rather like badminton horse trials, really.
So it's a rather nasty worm. It's a Mexican kind of horse show, and it's a sea mist in Peru. Patrick.
Patrick, the man said speak.
On the day that we find Peruvians, Bolivians bumping into one another and crying oops after ole, not disregarded altogether.
Got the joke out there.
This worm, no, you did the joke first of all, out. Awful worms get into the pelvis, quite possible. Mexican. I think it's Bulgarian, not Bulgarian, Bolivian. No, it isn't a foreign. I've been overruled here. It's little Mexican horse festival.
It's the Mexican horse show, yes. Gemma, true or bluff? Tell us. Behold. No. Now, you were nearly going to choose something else. Who knows? Might well turn out to be the true definition. Let's see the true one.
Let's have it, lad. Yes.
Yes, it is the sea mist in Peru, far-fetched though that be. Gemma is the next word, and Patrick defines it.
Let's take two elderly fishermen. Mm-hmm. There's two elderly fishing boats. Mm-hmm. And one of them breaks down.
Man or the boat?
And wait, I'm explaining it as best I can. This is a complicated nautical matter. One boat breaks down, and the old fisherman in the boat that hasn't broken down, is kind enough to throw his friend a gummer in addition to the tow rope. Because if the old fisherman towing his broken down old friend finds that the tow rope is parted, at least he's got the gummer still between them.
What is it?
It's a tow rope. Kind of secondary tow rope.
Right, yes. Little doubt there for a minute, not much. Dinsdale Landen now.
Well, a gummer, I mean, it's not so very surprisingly, has something got to do with teeth. I mean, not with the molars and incisors, but with the teeth of a saw, a carpenter's saw. A gummer is a skilled artisan who works with a file to deepen and enlarge an old worn saw, thereby giving the latter a very new and useful life. It's quite simple.
Yep, right. So, Anouska Hempel, what do you tell us?
Well, a gummer is an Australian word. Gummer, you know, it's a prospector's hut that they used to make out of wattle and eucalyptus branches and all that sort of thing. And the prospector used to go in there out of the shade with his hat and his corks on and sit in there, and it was called a gummer. You know? Gummer. Gummer shade.
No, why not? It's easily be.
I have no idea. It's all gum.
Well, it seems that it's a useful rope. A useful rope used by the seamen. It's a saw improver, and it's a prospector's hut. Frank.
Hat?
Hut.
Hut.
Not one of those things with corks around it.
No, they had the hat on with the corks, and they got in the hut called the gummer.
Methinks the lady doth help too much. I don't think prospectors had huts. They either went into digs during the gold rush, or they slept under trees by a billabong. So we're not having that. I don't think you can improve saws by deepening the slot in the middle. I think you sharpen the teeth, and when there's no teeth left, you chuck them away. So I'm afraid it must be my dear friend Patrick's ridiculous secondary tow rope.
The one the seamen use when need arises. Patrick, was that true? Or were you teasing again?
Dear friend, I was teasing.
Oh! All rubbish! We need to know the truth now. Aha.
Ooh. Well, thank you very much indeed.
You can improve saws, and gummers do. 1-1. Scaddon's the next word, and Barry, your go.
Well, you could call a scaddon a kind of weenie bopper bee. I say you could call it, I'm sure you wouldn't want to, but that's what you could call it, because it is a very young bee that has come too early out of the cell and is not yet able to fly. And it's a very tragic sight. You can see them all around the hives looking down at these scaddons, weeping because they know that it's going to come to a sorry end. It's a very technical word, which is possibly why you might not have heard of it before, and it's only likely to be used by a professional apiarist. But a scaddon that's it, it's a young bee.
A crying young bee.
Yeah, stranger things have been known. Gemma.
A scaddon is a word used for the little twist of paper that you might tear off a larger piece of paper in order to make a spill to light a fire. And in Lancashire, it has an even more specific meaning because it's that little twist of paper that the schoolboys use to tie onto the tails of their kites. A scaddon.
Great. Now, Frank.
A scaddon existed as a scaddon for a few hundred years and then became a crapula.
Sorry?
And then it became a crapula. And then, after a few more hundred years, it became a hangover. And I think it's rather interesting that waking up in the morning with a mouth like a tram driver's glove and the twitching and the little fairies with rubber hammers hitting you on top of the head has always been with us, only the word has changed.
It certainly has changed.
So it's a bit of paper. It's a hangover, and it's a young bee. Dinsdale.
Yes. I don't think I believe at all in the tragic story of the bee. Do you? No, and I don't believe in
Keep out.
these kites. Sorry, I mustn't ask all that. I think it's this hangover.
This hangover, which Frank spoke so movingly. True or bluff? No. Who gave the true definition?
Let's see it now.
Oh, dear.
It's there.
Poor little scaddon.
It's a young bee turned down, Dinsdale.
Yes, I did turn down the
Means
young
a
bee.
young bee. Ring-a-ling, we get another one. Spanners? Well, spanners, but there. Dinsdale, your go.
What's spanners? I mean, it's quite simply an upper-class nickname for Spain. I mean, likewise, you have Twickers for Twickenham, Rugger. I'm sorry, can I please finish? And Rugger for rugby, and of course Starkers for stark naked. Possibly deriving from España, the Spanish name for Spain. The nickname is, I admit, completely obsolete, but last being noted in a Punch article in 1909. Spanners, as we chaps used to call it. Okay?
Yes. Anouska now.
Well, spanners is a word that is a word. It's a dirty word now. It's got something to do with work. And in the old days, you could do your spanners, which was you could instead of working an 8-hour day as such, you could work all your 8-hour days all the way through from the beginning of the week, so that you could finish your spanners on Friday lunchtime or Thursday evening if you worked sort of terribly hard and consistently. And it was called doing your spanners.
Seems very reasonable.
Dropping dead.
Yes. What are you going to tell us now, Patrick?
A spanners is... It's a game rather like with the game of marbles, but much more like the game of boule. I mean bowls, English bowls. Little Victorian lads used to play spanners on the drawing room carpet. All afternoon. Hour after hour, spanners. They even had mixed spanners. No. Only in the presence of an old aunt or an otherwise authorized chaperone.
So you tell it was no. It's a game of marbles played under those circumstances. It's a nickname for Spain, and it's the total hours of work you worked within a given period. So Barry Norman, he chooses.
Yes, right. I think that the spanners for Spain is rather like codders for codswallop. I don't think we'll have that one. And there's this other business of working spanners. And then Patrick. The truth isn't in Patrick, of course. He's usually telling lies. But I think on this occasion he's telling the truth. I think I'll go for Patrick's definition.
You select the one. He said it was
indeed.
Marbles played on carpet. It's true or Bluff.
Patrick.
Did you plump?
I plumped.
Good God Almighty.
So I
Very
plumped
rare.
for him to plump for me.
Yes, right. True
He was
or bluff?
dead right, too, wasn't he?
You plumped to some good effect. You're rather against plumping, but just now and again...
You are against plumping.
Yes, indeed. It's got to be stopped, stamped out, indeed. But he's right. Marbles, played on a carpet in Victorian times, was called spanners. Now we have Clamponier, I suppose. Gemma Jones.
Clamponier is a really ghastly musical din. I mean, real cacophony of dreadful discordant noise. That's a Clamponier. And to quote some advice upon piano playing from the Girls' Annual of 1876, continuous depression of the loud pedal will serve but to produce an unmelodious Clamponier.
No.
Handy sort of word, yes. Frank?
I would merely suggest it, that the word Clamponier really comes from the early part of the 18th century, sort of after Vanbrugh built the new Haymarket Theatre. It was the very wide centre aisle of a theatre during the intervals of the play, in which the ton, the nobility, were wont to chat and saunter and stroam amongst, and sometimes during the acts. It was known otherwise as Fopp's Alley.
Yes. Now, Barry?
Clamponier is a tall, long, high, narrow horse. It is, if you like, an equine Patrick Campbell or Frank Muir, although I don't think it has quite the moustache or the bow tie of Frank. But it is rather like that. It's a long, tall, narrow horse. It's long in the pastern, which is the bit between the hoof and the fetlock. And it has this long, high, narrow appearance. And that's what a Clamponier is.
Good Lord.
Yes, well, so it's a disagreeable sort of a noise. It's the aisle in the middle of this particular theatre where you strolled if you were posh, and it's a tall sort of horse resembling the old gentleman who captained the teams. Now, Anouska, you choose.
Poker Face's team. Give
Yes, I
nothing
feel a
away.
bit poker faced too about it. What do you think, Patrick? Do you know? No?
2 to 1 chance, my dear.
Shall we have a quick? Well, I've got a feeling that it's probably the aisle where all the nobility got together to do their clamping oniers in...
Give nothing away.
Don't. I don't think Barry was right, and Gemma could have been right. I don't know, Frank.
But you're going to choose
Yes,
what
I'm
Frank...
going to choose
yes,
Frank's.
Frank said it was the aisle in which people strolled. True or bluff?
No.
No, chaps didn't. They didn't stroll there. We have to know who gave the true definition. Here it comes. Watch closely.
Not again!
Tall, thin, lovable horse. Now we have another word. It's Carol. And Anouska Hempel, your turn.
Well, now this word is a nostalgic reminder of the old days, and we're in a grocer's shop or a draper's shop, there used to be that amazing little bit of wire that ran around the shop. And when you paid your bill, you gave the money to this little man in his white apron. He took the money and he put it into this rather lovely brass cylindrical thing, clamped it up to the wire, and it zuzzed all the way around to the lady in the accountant's desk who was sitting there, and it dropped into her lap. She took the money out, put back in the receipt and the right change, took it back onto the wires, went all the way around the room again, came down to the person who'd served you, and the little brass thing that goes all the way around is the little thing called the carrel.
Well, I don't think you left anything out there. Patrick, now what do you tell us?
It's a long journey.
Carrel, or rather carrels, little kind of cells are the carrels. You find them all annexes to kind of cathedral cloisters. Little private retiring rooms for monks that have had enough of the turning around the cathedral. I wanted a little moment of privacy for themselves. They might read or have some real fun, like a little game of solitaire. But it's in those the game of solitaire goes on with monks.
Dinsdale.
Well, carrel. Very well-known word to people like the late Winston Churchill, indeed to Lou Grade, because it happens to be the inner part or the core of guess what? A cigar. It's very simple. It's the tube with the smallest and topmost leaves of a tobacco plant, around which the larger and the outer leaves are wrapped and rolled. For your further education, I might add that this outer wrapping is known to those in the business as its gown, spelt G-A-W-N.
So they say. It's an overhead zuzzer, I think you said. Good word for it, too. It's a monk's annex, and it's the core of a cigar, the centre bit, or... Anyway, Gemma.
Oh, my goodness. Well, Anouska's description was so nostalgically precise. I nearly had a blub, that little brass carrel. Tempted to go for that. Rather like the idea of the monks having a little bit of private time off in a carrel. Don't like the cigar, so I'm toying between Anouska and Patrick. It's something to do with carols and monks playing solitaire. Yes, I think I'll plump for Patrick.
Oh, plump away. Plump. Feel free. This is the place to plump. So, yes, a monk's annex, Patrick. You did say it now, didn't you? True or bluff?
Get back in there.
Looks well pleased.
Yes,
You leave out your plumping.
Oh, no! Nice thinking. Nice. All that about carols. Nice to see some thought processes. Gamelan. Or I don't know how you pronounce it, Frank.
Visit almost any, I would say, Javanese or Sumatran discotheque, and you would probably hear the music of the gamelan. Because a gamelan is a Javanese or Sumatran orchestra it's a sort of combo comprising almost entirely percussion instruments, rectangular pieces of metal, and they go in a lot for gongs. It's a sort of bang, doing, doing, ding, oing, bang, bang, doing,
It's very good.
That kind of gamelan.
Is there a second verse?
You were leading with your chin there, Patrick. Leave it alone. Barry.
Well, a much more prosaic explanation, gamelan is the produce of a Red Indian's kitchen garden. Whatever is grown within the vegetable garden area of the Red Indian compound, that's called the gamelan, and they're likely to grow stuff like nukatugu, which, of course, as you know, is a small parsnip, or a wiwampok, which is an even smaller potato.
Yes, even
and indeed, in any wigwam, you could hear them saying, pass the wiwampok, and... Well, that's what a gamelan is. They grow the wiwampok on it.
Now, Gemma, your turn.
A gamelan is the piece of cloth that's worn round the leg, tied round the leg, either above or below the knee as you choose to stop your stockings falling down. In other words, it's a garter. And there's an old country phrase to cast a gamelan, which means to woo or seduce or otherwise entice a prospective husband by casting a gamelan.
Nice.
So, well, it's a Javanese orchestra, it's a kind of a garter, and it's a Red Indians allotment. Patrick, choose away.
If it's an orchestra, it's called an orchestra. It isn't called a gamma level. Ding dong dong dong. It's called an orchestra. Not Indian garden dribble shit. With you put dollars as well.
The what?
What you said about can mix
Louis
page. Yeah, yes, yes.
Yes.
Well, it's said it is that's nonsense. It's a garter.
The garter. Gemma Jones, true or bluff? Not a garter. Who gave the true definition of gamma lang?
If it's you,
I'm undone. Oh,
I think you deserve an encore, Patrick, and you might get, you never know. Anyway, lovely singing.
Verse 2.
Lovely singing. It's a Javanese orchestra. 6-1, goodness me. Philister is the next one. Patrick, his go.
a philister is a pedant's name for a cobweb. You know what a cobweb is? A spider's web.
Vaguely.
Yep. It kind of lurks around in deeper bits of Wiltshire this very day. If the women folk of the house, including one's wife, had not been too busy with the feather duster, you can say to somebody, I'm dreadfully sorry, Derek or Eric, but my place is simply draped with philisters. Thank you.
But only in Wiltshire. Now, Dinsdale Landen's turn.
A philister was an alchemist's retort. It was a glass or earthenware vessel that an alchemist used in his efforts to transmute base metals into gold. It's a word, strangely enough, that occurs once in Dante Gabriel Rossetti's poem, The House of Life. I'll read that to you.
Destroyed of it?
No, not all of it, just a little bit.
Oh, sorry, no. Do.
Destroyed of honour, he shall so endure a brimming of the philisters of wrath for certain years.
Charming.
Lovely, yes. Very moving. Anouska.
Well, philister is a German word that means Philistine. And it's a rather derogatory word that was used by German university students for those lesser creatures who hadn't had any education whatsoever, and they used to call them Philisters.
I say. Well, it's an alchemist's retort. It's a cobweb in Wiltshire, and it's an uneducated German, according to educated Germans. Frank Muir.
I asked Gemma what she thought, and she said, and I said, do you really think so? She said, no. Thank you for your help. This is rather difficult, isn't it? I suppose could it be a cobweb? What are we supposed to think it's first of? Filament, I suppose.
Yes.
Alchemist's old retort. I've got an old retort for an alchemist. Plaster or the German. Is there a PH in German?
It appears to be now, if it wasn't before.
No, true indeed. Well, I've no idea about this. Have you? No. We'll go for darling Anouska, because looking so beautiful and hasn't had much chance of waving your card at me. Let's have a look at this.
How jolly decent.
Yes, I thought so.
It's the uneducated German of which you spoke, Anouska. True or bluff? Here it comes. Bullseye! These moments, 7-1, make it all worthwhile. We've just got nice time for the last word, which is celadon. And Barry, it's your kick-off.
It's a stone that is alleged to lurk in the belly of an eagle, and it is said to have beneficial results when wrapped up in liniment, or lint rather, and applied to stricken areas. But it probably isn't from an eagle's belly, but it's supposed to be in there. It's a healing stone.
No, Gemma.
What are you talking about?
Celadon is a wax-like substance that you get from rubbing sticks of sugarcane, and in culinary uses it's heated up and liquidized and made into a smooth, waxy, rather delicious substance for putting over cakes and fruit. Celadon.
Frank?
I plump for celadon being a colour or tint. A very subtle, pale green, which I suppose you could liken it to a willow tree in spring or a child with a bilious attack. It's a lovely, soft, subtle green colour.
So it's a species of green. It's a kind of a wax, which is edible, and it's a kind of a stone, which has the property of healing. Dinsdale, fairly quick choice.
I think it's that stone that has a kind of
You don't
healing.
like the other two? You
No, I don't like the other two
about
at all, no. I just dismiss them.
Well,
But it's
you are
that
being
stone.
awfully prompt, that's true. Barry, true or bluff?
I knew I couldn't win them all.
Yeah, I mean, now let us hear the true definition.
Celery.
It is. I think I've known two words in the whole of this series of Call My Bluff. That's the third. I knew that was meant green.
I knew that. I knew the word for your word, the cell, for the monk's cells, because it's what they call the little booths in the library at St Andrews University.
Ah, splendid. Well,
I
well,
knew
well.
the word celadon, which is a stone in a turkey's rump.
Well, enough.
It turned out not to be by sheer chance.
Enough of this rather modest boasting that we're going in for. The score standing at 8. Why, there's no doubt about it. Frank and his team has won. So, more nonce words from the OED next time. Until then, goodbye from Barry Norman, Dinsdale Landen, Gemma Jones, Anouska Hempel, Frank Muir, Patrick Campbell, and goodbye. Good evening. This is Call My Bluff, featuring the only 8-foot leprechaun in the business, Patrick Campbell.
Last week, battered into the ground under my careful guidance. My two companions begged if they could come back again to make even more of a mess of it. We have a kind of female messer here called Anouska Hempel.
Thanks.
And an actor called Dinsdale Landen. Now,
The man with all the wooden halfpennies, Frank Muir.
And back, of course, comes the old Duchess of Duke Street herself, Gemma Jones. And on my left, Mr. Sprocket Hole himself, Barry Norman.
Very good. Technical reference there. Now we get on with it. Yes, ring the bell, get the first word, Pinjane. And as you probably remember, Patrick Campbell and his team on this occasion will define Pinjane 3 different ways. 2 of the definitions are false, 1 is true. That is the one that Frank and co try and pick out. So, Patrick, what of this word, Pinjane?
it's called Pinjani. It's an old American and old West Indian word. A kind of Spanish silver coin. It ought to be called Pinhani. But seeing those old American, old West Indian, it's called Pinjani. A silver doubloon, a half a doubloon.
A single loon.
In those a moment, please, a moment. In those days, retailing around about 75 newtons. It might interest you to know that Washington Irving, a little bit of it quite on his watch chain. And he called it even a Pinjani too, like everybody else.
Ah bon. Next,
bon.
please.
So, the next is indeed Dinsdale Landen.
Oh, I don't know if any of you collect pewter, but if you do collect pewter and it goes off, it goes a bit rusty, etc., and you've run out of pewter polish, may I suggest the plant Pinjane? You know the plant Pinjane?
No.
Well, the leaves of Pinjane, that's a herb known also as shepherd's thistle, you'll find, will, if rubbed upon pewter, bring it back to a lovely sort of sultry metallic colour. Very good stuff.
Yep.
Plant.
Anouska Hempel this time.
Well, Pinjane is a regional word peculiar to the Isle of Man, and it means curds and whey, or coagulated milk. And probably the poet who was writing Little Miss Muffet sat on her tuffet eating her Pinjane, substituted curds and whey because it didn't rhyme. See, yes, you know.
Okay, so it's a kind of a polish that's okay for pewter. It's a coin and it's some part of milk. Frank Muir.
What did he say? Oh, no. Right. Here we go.
Oh, get on with it.
Well, I haven't got an idea in my head. We are in some slight disarray here. Old coin dangling on Washington Irving's watch chain. Even if true, the Oxford Dictionary wouldn't note that, would it? Plant which you rub on pewter. Does sound like a plant, doesn't it? Coagulated milk. We haven't had the Isle of Man before, have we?
Don't believe so.
No. So, what do you think, audience? No, I better not. That's quite wrong. I think it's the... Oh, God, I don't know. I'll have the plant, the rubbing the stuff on the pewter.
Polish, yes, plant from which they get polish. Dinsdale, true or bluff? It's there.
Oh, Lord, you've done it.
No. Nothing to do with that. Let's have the true definition. Someone must have given it.
Oh, no.
It's there.
Oh, that's...
Yes.
No, not that one yet.
No, not that one.
Lot of acting going on.
Yeah. Do it. It's sure yours.
The suspense. It certainly is milk. Well, it's that part of milk of which Anouska spoke. Guffin is our next word, and Frank Muir defines it.
Guffin, Patrick might just know, because it's really very old lower deck naval slang for
You rotter.
for government stores which have gone mouldy or no longer fit for use. Hence the fact that due to the love-hate relationship between the lower deck and Royal Marines, a Royal Marine was known to a sailor as a guffin once. Not twice, because he'd be hit.
Barry, your turn.
Well, when you have got the porcelain out and you're dusting it, when you've got the ming on the table and you're giving it a once-over with a feather duster, a guffin is the very last person you want about. If you see a guffin coming down the garden path, you bolt the door and you shout, "Go away, guffin," because a guffin is a very clumsy fellow. And indeed, on Somerset or in the Isle of Man, when the fellow trips over his third foot, you hear them saying, "Ah, but you be a great guffin."
Pardon?
Ah, but you be a great guffin.
Great guffin there.
Or even in Mummerset, I
Or in
believe.
Mummerset, they might even say it.
Gemma, have a go.
A guffin is an American stickleback. There's little fish that little boys catch and put in jam jars. But as it's an American stickleback, of course, it's much larger and gaudier than an English stickleback. In fact, the stickles on its back can sometimes grow to be an inch, which is a pretty big guffin.
So, it's kind of naval stores, it's a clumsy person, and it's a special kind of stickleback. And Patrick is to choose at this juncture.
What about this love-hate relationship between the Royal Marines and the lower deck? That's what you said, wasn't it?
I did indeed say that, sir.
Oh, it's very filthy, isn't it?
Not to pure minds, sir.
Is it true? Is it true?
Well, the definition?
Yeah.
I'm not entitled to divulge that.
Yes, fine.
It was a trap. I nearly fell in that.
We've got Barry with his Ming out and the Guffin coming up. There's a thing called a guppy, which is a small little stickleback. Oh, I think it's a little stickleback or a fishery.
The stickleback. Gemma. True or bluff?
Smiling too sweetly.
Yes, exactly.
She doesn't mind. He was only fooling you. It wasn't true. Who gave the true one?
Ah, but you'd be a lot of great.
Guffin is a clumsy person. 1-1. Trebuke is the next word. Dinsdale Landen to define it.
Trebuke or Trebuke is a card game known to card players. If you're about to give a game of whist, and obviously you need 4 people, if only 3 people turn up, you play a card game which is known as Trebuke. It's a very simple game. It's 3-handed whist. A game played with 30 cards, and a game which, furthermore, might well have whiled away the time of the 3 old ladies in the Dirty Ditty.
Well, yes. And
Which
yes
dirty
and no.
ditty?
I know that window.
3 old ladies.
No.
Oh, dear, what can the matter be?
I believe, Frank, you paid Dinsdale to lead with that. However, we can't hang around. Anouska, your turn.
Well, a trebuke was a medieval engine of war that was used to sort of batter fortresses into rubble, and it was a sort of a marvellous wooden framework with a spot that you put the boulder in, and there was a multiplicity of ropes all hanging off the side of it, and sort of when you got yourself lined up, you either rammed yourself against the wall or you parabolically sort of went zip over the top and landed in the middle of it.
That's very clear.
You know.
She's very technical-minded, yes, indeed. Very well done, Patrick.
You want to build a small bridge over a muddy-bottomed river.
Not particularly, no.
You want going to want about 4 trebukes, because they are, of course, a huge rectangular hollow tubes, and you bash them into the bottom of the muddy river, about 6 feet down. Pour in your concrete then, which expels the mud, and you leave your trebuke there for 2-3 weeks.
That's clever.
And you've got 4 little columns. You put the bridge over on.
Yes, you could, couldn't you?
Do you still have a muddy bottom?
Oh, yeah. No, after it comes up, you see.
I don't think there's any more you could usefully tell us about that.
No,
Patrick.
well, not now.
No, it's a kind of a concretist tube that you pour the concrete down. It's a sort of a card game, and it's an engine of war. Barry Norman.
Well, I don't know. I mean, this card game known to card players, that's very subtle, isn't it? I mean, there may be some significance in that. Then there's parabolic engine of war and a bridge over a muddy bottom. Patrick's muddy bottom? Or...
Not my personal money.
Not your personal money. I'm glad you cleared that up, Patrick. I'm worried. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I think they're all lying, frankly. It's a card game for 3-handed whist players.
Now, that was Dinsdale, you said.
That was Dinsdale.
True or bluff,
Yes, it's
Dinsdale?
One tries one's best.
Oh, you seem rather No, twant that. What was it? It's the young lady there. Yes, indeed.
There she
See,
is.
there it is. Engine of war. Did all those things she said it did, and then some. Gatch is the next thing, and word, I should say. Barry Norman.
A gatch is a big-bellied jug, which you carry things in. It's a pot-bellied pot, if you like. And if I may read you some of me poetry, there's a little ditty that goes, I think it's from the Isle of Man, possibly, or Suffolk.
Again?
It goes, a gatch o' milk I'd been to fill. You shouldered oi to make it spill. So gatch and oi spun down the hill.
Very good.
Yeah.
And that's what a gatch is, a pot-bellied pot.
In the Isle of Man.
I often wondered how
Possibly
they
in the Isle
speak
of
in the
Man.
Isle of Man.
Yes,
actually.
they speak exactly like that, the Isle of Man. Yes, they do.
I'll try and remember that. Now, whose go is it? Yes, Gemma.
Well, now, if you've ever taken a stroll round Adadan or Tehran, you will surely have noticed that all the roofs are covered in gatch, because gatch is a Middle Eastern builder's plaster. It's rather like plaster of Paris. So I suppose it should really be called plaster of Persia, but it isn't. It's called gatch.
Wit is that?
About 3 jokes in
Have a
one.
go.
Gatch, fairly boring and not helped by the way I tell it, is a bit of a glove. And when gloves were handmade, it was the important bit of a glove because it's the bit which determines the fit of the glove, and it's the thumb piece that comes into there.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Well, it's a glove thumb piece. It's plaster. It's plaster, and it's a large jug. Dinsdale to pick.
Oh dear. As for this pot-bellied pot,
Shall I do me poem? Get
by these Devonshire people who live in the Isle of Man. It's very tricky. Middle Eastern plaster and a bit of a glove. It's awfully tricky, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nevertheless...
No, dear. I'm going to go for this pot-bellied pot in the Isle of Man. I don't know why, but that's what I'm going for.
Well, it was Barry who said it.
You mad
True or
cat.
bluff? You
Am
have
I
to
mad?
tell us.
It was I who said it. I'm sorry about this, Frank.
Nevertheless...
So no jug. Who gave the true definition? Let's have it. Gemma Jones did. Plaster. That's what it is. She was right. 2-all. Skitty
not
Bat's the
fair.
next one. Anouska Hempel to define it.
Skitty bat.
Now, a skitty bat. It's not me. It's a Scandinavian word that is a loop. How do I explain? It's a loophole. It's a hole in the middle of one of those walls, medieval castle walls, and you could put your cannon in it and fire out from it,
Another
or any
castle.
kind of artillery. What?
You're hearing all castle.
Yes, I know. I mean, yes, I've got the castle thing going.
Don't get an argument with him, you're lost.
Anyway, there's a legend about the Duke of Monmouth who escaped from Dunster Castle, and he was caught escaping from a skitty bat.
Yep. Patrick's turn.
In Victorian times, a gentleman's gentleman put his gentleman's feet not into a skitty bat, but a pair of skitty bats.
Baths.
A gentleman said, he'd been pottering around the garden. Yes, sir, I got your skitty bats for you. A kind of pre-welly, really. Laced up above the shin bone, about 6 inches above the ankle bone, for gardening in.
But wellies were pre-Victorian anyway.
This is not my fault or your fault.
It's Dinsdale Landen to do it now. He will.
Well, all I can say is, if any of you are going to Glasgow and you go up to some Glaswegian, you say, "Here, skitty bat." Don't do it. Don't do it at all. It's a very nasty criticism of a Glaswegian. And it means he's a touch balmy. He's off his head. And if you do say, "Okay, you're a skitty bat," I think you'll find you're in for a very nasty punch-up. That's all I have to say.
So, it means you're a bit daft in that way, yes. Harebrained, that kind of thing. Special pair of boots and a hole for a cannon to go through. Gemma Jones?
Well, they all seem totally improbable to me. I mean, how the Duke of Monmouth escaped from a Scandinavian skitty bat out of an English castle is,
Oh, the word Scandinavian, not the castle here.
I see. And pre-wellies. It's a nice name for pre-wellies. Put your skitty bats on, we'll go for a walk. I rather like that. Or this balmy Glaswegian. I think I like the pre-wellies. Yes.
Of Patrick.
Yes.
True or bluff, Patrick? Skitty Man was an early form of Wellington. 3-2. We have the word gompa. Gemma Jones will tell us about it.
Yes, a gompa is where a llama goes to get away from it all. Now, I don't mean that four-legged furry thing from South America, you know. But a lama, a Tibetan monk, goes into his gompa, which is a Tibetan hermitage.
Sort of retreat.
Exactly. Sits and
Don't encourage
meditates in his saffron robe for days, weeks, months in his gompa.
Right now, Frank.
In the teak forests of Burma, they had one heck of a problem. Because you chop a teak down, and the steamer which is going to carry it away, or the sawmills, are a long way away. How to get the teak tree from there to there? Somebody said, why not build a narrow gauge railway line, build a long, thin truck with iron wheels, get an elephant or something to push it or pull it, and I'll tell you what, call the carriage a gompa.
I guessed that.
Did you? Yeah. Marvellous story.
Barry Norman's turn.
Gompa is a slang word for a very, very powerful South American drink. Are you listening to me?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, good. Distilled from... Just a bit. Distilled from maize. And when they were building the Panama Canal around about 1908, they had to keep Gompa away from the workers because they drank it and they were gompared out of their minds. One drink and you could virtually be breathalyzed. So Gompa, the sale of Gompa was banned in the whole canal area while they were building the canal. It's a drink made out of maize.
So it's a kind of a hermitage to which a lama retires. It's a trolley for transporting teak, and it's a strong drink. Anouska.
Trolley for transporting llamas. Oh, so confusing.
No.
No, I know. I don't think it's the llamas going off to the Tibetan hermitage. I don't think it's a slang word, being gompared. I think it's your railway thing in Burma with the elephants.
The trolley. Frank, it was you.
I am prepared to give you another chance.
Oh, my God. What do I do now?
You just
He's not allowed. It's true, isn't it?
They don't call him Gilles de Rais for nothing. Dear me. Who gave the true definition?
Some fool over there.
It's the retreat for the llama. Got to go somewhere. 4-2. Pennet is the next one. Patrick defines it.
A pennet was a kind of semi-capacious tent for military purposes in a number of the Afghan wars.
Oh, so you're going to say Afghan dogs?
No, wait. No, interrupt us, please. You set off, perhaps even from Knightsbridge with your pennet. A penny heading in the jungle. Shanty wars as well. The trouble with the pennet was that it would accommodate only perhaps 3 second lieutenants, or 1 brigadier,
No use.
or half a major general.
Not on, is it?
So, Dinsdale tells us a thing.
Well, pennet is quite simply a centuries-old dialect word for a stick of barley sugar. A sicky twist of barley sugar, rather. Known also to some children as Peggy's leg. It's lovely. Well, way back in the year 1470, pennets were on sale in the city of Ripon, in Yorkshire, for about 4pence each. That's all I can tell you about it.
It seems, yes, more than enough. Anouska?
No. Pennant. was a small piece of musical notation or musical calligraphy. And it's a little hook-shaped mark that converts a crotchet into a quaver. You know, so you halved the whatever it was, and sort of a semi-quaver had 2 on it, and a demi-semi-quaver had 3 on it. And so it's a musical hook.
So it's a kind of a mark on a musical script. It's a kind of a tent, you couldn't get many people in, and it's barley sugar once on sale in Ripon. Frank Muir.
Well, I don't know. I wrote a film about the British Army in Afghanistan, Flashman. It was never made, don't worry. They cancelled the project before. And I don't remember anything about the British Army having tents like these, or anything like them. So I don't think that can be true.
Perhaps you meant the Isle of Man.
You've got a fixation, haven't you, about the other? Barley sugar in 1493 at 4p would be about 140 quid, present-day prices. So I feel there's a bit of a fallacy lurking there. So it must be the musical hook.
The musical yeah, that's right. Anouska, was that true, my dear?
Well,
it never. No, wasn't that. Here comes the true definition. Can you wait? Yes, you'll... there it goes.
Too well up on your inflation.
Thing was, it was worth 140 quid, Frank. Yeah, good stuff in Ripon. They never ate anything else. That's why their teeth dropped out. Let's go on now and have another word. Banquet. Frank, you go.
Oh, a banquet is a very simple little thing, really. It's a Midwestern, in America, a sort of cakey thing, which they used to eat, sort of harvesting or something. It was a plainish kind of pastry with a bit of squodgy sweet stuff in the middle, a bit of lemon curdle jam or something. Rather nice, actually. I like a nice one occasionally. You know.
Right, Barry?
Well, if you were prospecting for gold in the Transvaal and you dug down into the earth and you were lucky enough to turn up a little almond-shaped stone, that would be a banquet. It's a little stone that carries gold ore and is found in the Transvaal. Of course, it doesn't have to be almond-shaped. It doesn't necessarily have to be quite that kind of stone, but it is basically...
anything, really.
It's a stone that carries gold, and you find it in the Transvaal.
Could be cake-shaped, couldn't it?
It could be cake-shaped. Could be cake-shaped.
Gemma?
A banquet is a poor man's hassock. I mean, not those nice, soft, upholstered, embroidered cushions that you kneel on in church, but a really rough mat made out of reeds or rushes to prevent wear and tear on the kneecaps when in an attitude of prayer. A banquet.
So it's a kind of a nice cake. It's a piece of gold ore, or it's a poor man's hassock. Patrick?
It must be easier than I have found up till now to guess right. Yes. Deep analysis here. There are no hassocks for poor people because we are all in the...
There are no rich people, that's why.
Want a luxurious hassock? Nonsense.
Good idea, then.
You're so thin and silly, Frank. I think it's this awful American Midwestern cake. Am I right?
I think it's the cake. The cake. It sometimes is cake on this programme, and then sometimes not. True or bluff, Frank?
You leave off that smoke.
Sorry, sir.
Just like it's sometimes Norfolk, but not that time. Who gave the true definition? Then we can get another word in. Who knows? Yes, yes.
The Isle of Man.
Hey, God. So gold ore is what it is. Now we have our last word. Nidor, Nidor, Dinsdale Landen.
It's called a nidor, actually. A nidor is quite simply a solid halo. A sort of nimbus over a saint's head that is portrayed not as a whitish ring, but as a solid white disc. That's what it is. There are some nidors in old-fashioned stained glass windows appear ominously like sort of, flying saucers.
Now, I'm going to have to ask you, Anouska, to move a little swiftly, if you will.
Well, it's a gastronomic pong that comes from sort of the unsavoury... It's the unsavoury sort of smell of cooking, you know, sort of the unslurpable smell from cooking.
That's enough
Yes.
of that.
Now Patrick has a go.
Well, nidor. And most birds are feathered. Most birds build little nests, and they are called nidors. Got some hairs that make little nests. They're called forms. But no cuckoo is a nidor because he doesn't make his own little nest. Thank you.
Right. So it's little tiny animals who make their nests. It's the smell of cooking not altogether agreeable, and it's a solid type halo.
Leap in the
Barry,
bed.
swiftly if you will.
I didn't understand a word of that.
Not a single word, no. So, quickly, I think it was what Dinsdale said it was.
You think it was what he
Dinsdale
said?
Yes.
He said it was the halo.
One more word.
If I could squeeze one in, you know I would. Who gave the true definition of thing, nidor?
Of course, little.
You see, it was she.
Never looking you at last.
It's the smell of cooking, the smell of How could you disbelieve her when she speaks like that? So, we come to the end. Not much of a gap, but still gap there be. 4-5, no doubt about it. Frank Muir and co. have won. So we'll be having some more broken springs from the Oxford English Dictionary next time. Till then, goodbye from Dinsdale Landen. Barry Norman. Anouska Hempel. Gemma Jones. Patrick Campbell. Frank Muir.
Good night.
And goodbye.